Welcome to reality. You're now on the Code of Mind channel. Have you ever wondered why we trust the solidity of this world so blindly? Since childhood, we've been taught a wall is brick, a table is wood, and the past is an unshakable fact. But what if I told you that the reality you see in front of you is closer to code than to stone? That it's flexible, mutable, and most importantly, it glitches. You've noticed these moments. But your mind, trained in rational thinking, quickly covers them up. It's nothing. I forgot. I'm just tired. You put your keys on the dresser, turn away for a second, and they're gone. You search the entire house. Then you come back, and they're right there, in plain sight. Or you meet someone you've known for years, and they recall an event that never existed in your memory. Not vaguely, in detail. And you know with absolute certainty that it never happened. Or maybe you've seen a bird frozen in midair for a few seconds, defying every law of physics. These are not coincidences. These are glitches. In programming, a bug appears when the code conflicts with itself. In our reality, a glitch happens when your consciousness starts to detach from the main program. For a moment, you fall out of sync and see behind the scene. Most people get scared. But this is not danger. This is an entry point. If you've started noticing that the world behaves strangely, your system has updated. You are no longer just a character running through a fixed script. You are becoming a user with admin access. The stability of reality is the greatest illusion. It exists so we don't lose our minds from infinite possibilities. But the moment you accept that reality is software, not stone, a door opens. A possibility most people are too afraid to even imagine. The ability to switch timelines, to move into a version where the rules are different. I'm going to show you stories from Reddit, where thousands of people share things they're afraid to tell even those closest to them. Stories about glitches, and how they use them to make a quantum jump into a new life. There's a well-known thread on Reddit about something called the 2 cups method, and one of the most cited cases comes from a user named uTriumphantEdge. This wasn't just luck. This was a documented system glitch across multiple layers of reality. George was stuck. Debt, no direction, a deep feeling that he was trapped in a broken version of his life. So he decided to run an experiment, what theoretical physicists might call macroscopic quantum tunneling, and what most people simply call a jump. The method was simple, but it required total focus. He took 2 ordinary glasses. On one he placed a label, unemployed, depressed. On the other, ET career, high income, joy. He filled the first glass with water, symbolizing his current state, energy trapped in an old form. Then, in complete silence, he slowly began to pour the water from the old glass into the new one. But this wasn't just a physical act. He visualized how the data stream of his life was changing structure, rewriting itself. When the last drop settled, he drank the water, completely, as if absorbing a new version of his future. And that's when things stopped making sense. The glitch happened immediately. A few hours later, George walked past an old photograph that had been hanging in his home for years. It was from his graduation. He froze. In the photo, he was wearing a bright red t-shirt, but he remembered, with absolute certainty, that he wore a blue shirt that day. Reality had rewritten itself retroactively, not just the future. The past changed too, aligning with the new version of him. But the biggest shift came 24 hours later. He got a call from a company he had never applied to. They offered him a position he had only dreamed about. Their words were simple. "We found your contact in our database and felt that you are exactly who we need." So what happened here? In this experiment, water acts as an information carrier, a kind of memory system for the Matrix. By pouring it with clear intention, he performed a physical act of rewriting data. Reality is not a hard drive, it's a stream, and when you change the container through which your energy flows, the system updates to match it. George didn't just find a job. He shifted into a timeline where he had always been successful, Even the color of his shirt in the past adjusted to fit the new version. The Matrix simply updated its cache to stay consistent with the new request. Remember this: you are not asking reality for anything. You are transferring information from one state to another, and the system must process it. There's another case from Reddit that forces you to rethink what we call a breakdown. For the Matrix, our emotions are not just feelings. They are energy, massive, raw, powerful. Imagine a situation many people know too well. The person in this story was in the middle of an intense, exhausting argument with his partner. The kind where everything boils over, where accusations hit their peak, where the air feels heavy with tension, where your heart pounds like it's about to explode. He was shouting, she was crying, dishes were breaking. A classic destructive scenario, a timeline leading straight to collapse. And then, the glitch happened. At the peak of the argument, right in the middle of the chaos, he suddenly felt something strange. A void, as if a switch inside him had been flipped. He stopped mid-sentence, closed his eyes, and said to himself, with absolute cold certainty, "This doesn't exist anymore. This reality is gone." He didn't calm down. He didn't suppress the emotion. He deleted it, instantly, completely. The entire emotional charge collapsed to zero. He turned around and walked out of the room, went to the kitchen to drink water. No shaking, no adrenaline, just silence, a strange calm, as if he was no longer himself but an observer watching from the outside. 3 minutes later, he walked back into the room, and the Matrix broke. His girlfriend was sitting on the couch peacefully reading a book. No broken dishes, no tension in the air. Everything was clean, still. When he carefully asked, "Are you okay?" she looked up, confused. "Yeah, why? You look pale." She remembered nothing. For her, the argument never happened. But the real glitch was in the corner of the room. A leather lounge chair. New. Perfectly placed. They had talked about it a month ago in a store, but never bought it. Now it stood there as if it had always been part of their home. So what happened? Strong emotion is high-density energy. During conflict, despair, or breakdown, you are fueling a specific timeline with massive intensity. But if at the peak, at maximum charge, you suddenly disconnect, completely, you create an energy vacuum. The system cannot process such an abrupt drop, and it ejects your consciousness into the nearest stable timeline. He didn't fix the relationship. He shifted into a version where the conflict never existed, where the chair had already been bought. Remember this: your reaction is the glue that holds you inside a specific reality. Stop reacting where the system expects you to, and you become a free variable. A force that can rewrite the code and land where the rules are different. Now, another case. In gaming, there's something called a lag, or unrendered textures, when a player enters a location before it fully loads. On Reddit, there are hundreds of reports of something similar, a kind of slipstream between time and space, loops that people accidentally fall into. One user described an ordinary workday, nothing special. Same office building he had worked in for 3 years. He stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the 12th floor, and looked down at his phone. The elevator moved smoothly. The doors opened. He stepped out, without looking up. And that's when reality lost resolution. When he lifted his head, he froze. The number on the wall said 12, but everything else was wrong. The walls were no longer gray plastic. They were warm, cream-colored. At the reception, large, vibrant plants that had never been there. And the people. That was the worst part. A group of employees walked past him, smiling, talking, but he didn't recognize a single face. He stood in the doorway. The layout was identical, but this was a different version, an upgraded one. The air smelled like expensive perfume and fresh coffee, not dust and stale ventilation. He felt something strange, a pull, a desire to stay. But fear won. He pressed the closed doors button, went down to the first floor, then back up again. The doors opened, and everything returned. Worn-out walls, a dying plant in the corner, a familiar coworker typing Razdrajono. Annoyed and exhausted, he tried to find that place again, ran between floors, but the elevator never made that mistake again. So what was that? The Matrix is a massive system of constant calculation, and when your attention is fully absorbed inward, into your phone, into deep thought, you stop stabilizing your current reality with observation, and in that moment, the system can load a neighboring stream. He didn't hallucinate. He accessed a different branch, one where the company was more successful, renovated, and staffed with different people. It wasn't a brain glitch, it was a rendering error. So how do you stay there? Simple. If you ever find yourself in a better version, and don't leave, interact, talk to someone, touch something, drink water there. The moment you take a physical action, your personal code syncs with that reality. Now let's go deeper. We think sleep is just a way to recharge the body, but if reality is code, sleep is something else. It's the only moment when the admin panel becomes accessible. In this state, your consciousness disconnects from the shared server and enters edit mode. One Reddit user called this method the night request. He discovered that if right before sleep, in that fragile state between wakefulness and dreaming, you set a clear, almost absurd intention, the system has to respond to confirm your admin access. His experiment was simple. Before sleep, he visualized two markers: a yellow umbrella in a place where it makes no sense, and a message from someone who disappeared from his life 10 years ago. He said, "I am changing the script. Tomorrow, I will see proof that I shifted timelines." And he fell asleep feeling like it already happened. The next day was not coincidence. It was a system glitch. On his way to work, he counted exactly 10 yellow umbrellas. The weather was clear. Normally, 0. A few hours later, he received an email from that exact person. No contact since 2016. The message contained just one sentence. "I don't know why, but I dreamed about you today. I think we need to talk." So what does this mean? During sleep, your brain operates on different frequencies. You disconnect from rigid perception and enter an information field where everything is connected. When you set a precise parameter, you instruct your subconscious to filter the reality where that event already exists. Sleep is not rest, it's a reboot, and when you wake up, reality aligns with what you selected. Because for the system, there is no difference between past and chosen outcome. You rewrite the code of your day while the system is idle. Remember this: tomorrow is not loaded yet, it's waiting for your command. Tonight, ask for a sign. Not money. Not something obvious. Ask for a glitch. Something undeniable. Something that proves this world is just a stage, and that you can change it. There's an entire thread on Reddit about people who shifted realities in moments of extreme danger. One of the most striking stories comes from a man driving along a mountain road during heavy rain. He remembers everything clearly: losing control, the sound of tires, the car flying off the edge, impact, metal crushing, darkness, not fear, an ending. And then, the system glitched again. He opened his eyes. He was still behind the wheel. The car was moving along the same road. But the rain was gone. The sky was clear, bright sunlight. And yet, he was terrified, because he remembered everything: the fall, the impact, the taste of metal in his mouth, the sound of glass shattering. He pulled over, hands shaking. He touched his body. No injuries, not a single scratch. But something was wrong. The world felt different. The sky had a deeper shade of blue, almost electric. The radio was playing a song he had never heard before. He realized something. His previous version was still there. Down below, in the wrecked car, in the timeline where his life ended. And he had respawned into the nearest version where the story continued. So what does this tell us? There is a concept called quantum immortality. It suggests that consciousness cannot be destroyed, because it is the observer. When a critical failure occurs, what we call death, your point of awareness does not disappear. It shifts, instantly, into the closest reality where you survive. This could explain those moments when people escape death by pure chance. Maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was a jump. We are immortal within our own storyline. Consciousness is the administrator. It always reconnects to the server where the game continues. And that thought is unsettling, because it makes you wonder, how many times have you already jumped without noticing? Maybe what we call the Mandela effect is just a trace, a leftover signal from timelines we left behind. You don't disappear. You change environments. And the more you realize that you are the observer, the less power randomness has over you. You are not here to end. You are here to continue the scenario your higher self selected. Now let's go deeper. In occult traditions and modern quantum psychology, a mirror is not just glass, it is an interface, a boundary between two parallel systems. On Reddit, there is a practice called mirror gazing. One user described an experiment that began as curiosity and ended with a complete rewrite of his life. He locked himself in the bathroom, turned off the lights, lit a single candle, just enough to illuminate his face. Then he stared directly into his own pupils, without blinking. This state alters perception. It activates what's known as the Troxler effect, where familiar visuals begin to dissolve. His face started shifting, becoming older, younger, turning into unfamiliar people. But he didn't stop. He held one single command inside his mind. I am successful. I am wealthy. I exist in the highest version of my life. He projected it into the reflection, like uploading a file into a system, and then the glitch happened. At one moment, the face in the mirror stabilized. It looked like him, but better. Healthier skin, confident eyes, different presence, more complete. And then his reflection winked at him, slowly, clearly. But he didn't move, not a single muscle. The reflection acted on its own. At that exact moment, the candle went out. Darkness. When he turned the light back on, everything looked normal. But something had shifted. Irreversibly. So what happened? A mirror is a boundary. When you stare into it with full awareness, you create a tunnel between your current self and another version of you. That was not a hallucination, that was contact. The wink was synchronization, signal received, connection established. From that day on, his reality began to change. Rapidly, opportunities appeared. New connections formed. Unexpected ideas came through. He didn't create a new life. He merged with a version of himself that already existed. Remember this: when you look into a mirror, you are looking at another operator, another version running a different script. And if you break through your pravichnaya perception, your habitual perception, you can negotiate a role swap. You step out. He steps in. The version of you who already made it. All these stories, all these glitches, they are not random anomalies. They are a language, the way the system speaks to you. And if you've made it this far, your update has already started. So how do you stop being a victim of random glitches and then start jumping consciously? Rule number 1, forget logic. Logic is the prison guard of your old world. It will always explain miracles as coincidence and glitches as fatigue. Its job is to hold the old picture together, so you don't escape. Instead of logic, trust sensation. Have you ever walked into a room and felt something was off? Or noticed that the air felt different? Don't ignore that. That's the feeling of detaching from your old timeline. If something feels wrong, congratulations. You are waking up. In that moment, reality becomes soft, malleable, like clay. Your task is not to fear these cracks. Remember what I said before. Don't break the mirror. Now I'll say more. Learn to walk through it, the mirror, a glass of water, the state before sleep. These are tools. Hotkeys to access the admin panel. Tell me in the comments. Have you noticed small shifts in your reality? Maybe your pet suddenly changed behavior, or even its appearance. Maybe a street you've known for years changed its name, and maps say it was always like that. Share your story. Your comments are part of the system hack. Let's collect evidence that the Matrix is starting to break. Wake up, and I'll see you in another reality. Thank you for being with me on this channel. I wish you the best possible branch of reality. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Take care.